Can't get out! Help! Help! À l'aide! On va mourir! Help!
Merci, merci, merci.
Hello everybody and welcome to this video looking at Assassin's Creed 3 Liberation. This is a re-release that's just landed on PlayStation 4 alongside the re-release of Assassin's Creed 3 itself. If you buy Assassin's Creed 3, this comes built in with it. It's not a separate release. And I wanted to talk about it, use the excuse of the new release to talk about this game a bit, because it's actually my favourite Assassin's Creed title of all, and that is despite it obviously not being the high budget production that some of the more recent Assassin's Creeds especially have been. This one was originally released on the PlayStation Vita, and the lower budget and lower production values of it show, but it does some really interesting things that I think make it well worthwhile, even though it's not the same kind of lavish production of these more recent Assassin's Creeds. And again, it is my favourite of the entire series. So Assassin's Creed Liberation stars Aveline, and she's one of the reasons that I love this game so much, because she's such a distinctive and interesting character. You have no other choice in this game. You have to play as her. It's one of the few times that you've had to play as a woman protagonist within the Assassin's Creed series, and Aveline is a half African American from a well-to-do family. She is an assassin, of course, but she has a really strong kind of she has a really strong moral streak as well, and she has this need to rescue the slaves, because obviously being set in New Orleans during the colonial era, slaving was a big deal. Slavery was a big part of society back then, and Aveline's primary goal, I guess, is to do what she can to help those people out, whether it is to rescue them or to help them escape. I guess that's the same as rescuing them, but her goal is definitely to help the slaves, and she has some really interesting tools which she uses to do that. One of Aveline's main tools to do that is her ability to change clothes, which is something that we haven't really seen in the Assassin's Creed series before or after, but it's a really clever little mechanic. So Aveline has 3 different costumes that she can adopt, and each one has a different profile. Her 3 costumes being the assassin's outfit, a slave's outfit, and a noblewoman's outfit, or a well-to-do person's outfit. And each of those has its own abilities. So, for example, the wealthy woman's outfit, the one that you're seeing on the screen in front of you, when she's wearing that, she has the ability to flirt with men, to make them follow her around like a dog and basically do her fighting for her. On the other hand, or she can also bribe people, and basically she can wander around town and not be too easy to detect or to figure out, what she's doing. The guards don't tend to pay too much notice to her. That comes at the consequence she hasn't got access to the same kind of weaponry or the mobility of some of her other profiles. So, for example, her assassin's outfit, she stands out a lot more with that, and the guards tend to pay attention to her more quickly. But she can climb walls, and she can run across roofs, and she has all the weapons and tools that the assassins are well known to have. Her third form is the slave's uniform, and when she's wearing that, she has the ability, she's still got quite a lot of mobility, and she can still climb around and stuff, but she attracts notice very quickly. The benefit to wearing that is she blends in better with the slaves, which helps her with certain missions when she needs to, adopt the will kind of blend in with the crowd when the crowd is obviously a lot of slaves. So of course much of the game involves following missions in which she'll need to constantly change uniforms depending on what she needs to achieve within the context of that mission. One of the things I love about Assassin's Creed Liberation is it's relatively free, liberated if you will. It's relatively free of the kind of icon crap that fills up so many other Assassin's Creed titles. There is a little bit of that. There's treasure chests around which you can find. There's some note papers that you can find. There's some alligators that you can wrestle in the bayous and all of that kind of stuff. There is a little bit of that Ubisoft open world stuff, but it's relatively restrained, probably because the budgets were thinner for this game, so they didn't have as much room and they decided to focus on the narrative and all that kind of stuff. But it actually works to the game's benefit because that more focused effort means that you're moving from mission to mission, story mission to story mission more quickly, and you get a better sense of character. The game has a more cohesive narrative as a result, and it's a really nice, compact little game. The world is not too big to explore. You don't have to travel quite as far as you would in other Assassin's Creed games. And it's split in two. So there's the city, the New Orleans city itself, and the bayou, which is a swampland. There is another couple of smaller areas which are used for individual missions, but those are kind of incidental. The main two areas are New Orleans and the swamplands. And because they're smaller and more focused, you don't have to move as far to get from one mission to the next, and it's all neat and compact, which I actually think works to the benefit of this game. The setting itself I find to be very appealing as well. I went into basically all the Assassin's Creed games without too much familiarity with the history behind them. The reason I play Assassin's Creed games is because of the historical element. To me, they're a little bit like Dynasty Warriors or Samurai Warriors in that they're perfectly fine playable games in their own right, but it's the historical context that makes them really interesting, and I come away from them having learned a little something about the world, the history of the time. And that was certainly the case with Assassin's Creed 3, the brother game to this one. I knew very little about colonial America. Very, very little, actually. It's not something we learn in history here in Australia. It's something we learn on our own if we're interested in it, but I just never really had the opportunity or the inclination to do so. When I played Assassin's Creed 3, I started to learn a lot more about it. I found myself inspired to go and read books and stuff like that, and I came away with a much better knowledge of, Washington and Samuel Adams and all the events of that period of time. The same is true with Assassin's Creed Rogue, from another period that I wasn't too familiar with, early era New York. Assassin's Creed Black Flag, the middle title between those two, that one I knew a little bit more about because I did know something about the pirates of the Caribbean and the Henry Morgans and all that of the world. But this one's probably the one I walked into least familiar of all. I knew very little about the Deep South of America during the colonial era. I didn't know that, for example, New Orleans changed hands between the French and the Spanish. And the kind of social tension that erupted as a result of that. Those events are depicted in this game quite nicely. Again, it's not too lavish because the game was a budget title and it didn't have the ability to do those kind of grand scale events that we've seen in some of the Assassin's Creed since, but it depicts them and it shows you them, and it makes it quite clear that that's what's going on. And again, you walk away from the game with that little bit more knowledge than you went in, which is nice. I like that. I like when games do that. And because Assassin's Creed Liberation is relatively compact, it wasn't too draining on my time. I was able to play it, enjoy it, and then move on. And I think, again, that Ubisoft should look at this game and take away some notes from it, because while it was a Vita game and therefore not as commercially successful as some of the other Assassin's Creeds, I think there's a lot to be said about the focus level of this one and the benefits that actually brings to the story of the game. And these games are very story driven, so I think for Ubisoft's best interests, it would be a good idea to learn something about this. What I really like about this one, most of all though, is just that it is willing to take some risks. Ubisoft, with its mainline Assassin's Creed games, always plays things so straight. They have got in the habit now of having a good representation of ethnicities and locations in the world, but at the same time they're all the kind of very popular ones, the very safe ones. You know, everyone knows about ancient Egypt, so of course they're going to set an Assassin's Creed there. The rumours are that the next Assassin's Creed is set in Scandinavia, and God knows how many stories we've had in video games about that part of the world during the Norse mythology and all that kind of stuff. The more experimental Assassin's Creeds tend to be the ones that are not the mainline ones. So that trilogy of Assassin's Creed 2D platformers, for example, I can't remember what that was called, Chronicles, I think. So Assassin's Creed Chronicle was quite interesting because they were set in China, India, and Russia during the Revolution. Now those three settings would never have a main numbered Assassin's Creed attached to them, and I think this one's much the same. New Orleans itself is a great setting, and you know, America's a relatively safe setting for a game, but how many video games in the Assassin's Creed series have let you kind of play as a properly, you know, African American character and are willing to deal with the kind of the topic of slavery and all of that kind of stuff, that very difficult subject matter. Not many of I would say that the main Assassin's Creed titles would never do that. So it's that experimental side of things that I really like about Liberation. And I really think that they nailed it. The voice actor that does Aveline is amazing. The presentation is simple but quite nice. The character designs are great. Aveline's 3 sets of costumes are really nice because, again, we haven't had too many opportunities to see women assassins, especially women assassins that don't just wear the assassin's clothing. You know, this one has that clothing change mechanic, and Aveline looks great in her upper class dress and all of that kind of stuff when she's putting on that act. And yeah, it's just a really good experimental game for that series. I will say there is one side mechanic in this game that I really loved as well. I've never been a big fan of hunting down treasure chests or notes or whatever. I kind of float through that in the Assassin's Creed series. It doesn't do anything for me. I'm not that kind of OCD where I have to go and collect every icon that's on a map. But this one has this entire side mission, if you will, where you need to manage your companies, your father's companies, Aveline's father's companies, trading routes. And that means you need to buy resources in one location. So for example, you need to buy tobacco in Havana, put it on a ship, and then ship it to New Orleans where you need to sell it as a profit. Now I've played a lot of those kind of trading games in the past, and I like them. I like them a lot. It's a really enjoyable, kind of casual way of doing a simulation type game, and Assassin's Creed Liberation actually does a really good job of that. Again, it's relatively simple compared to a trading game, but as a little mini game, as a little way of earning extra money without having to track down treasure chests or whatever, I really appreciated that. And again, it's just that very neatness about this game. It's very, very well designed, and it's hard to explain otherwise. It's an elegant Assassin's Creed. It's not bloated. It's not over the top. It's more restrained, more focused on the narrative and the characters, and just being what Assassin's Creed is best at. And to finish, just quickly on the presentation itself, this game looks really good on PlayStation 4. It's been quite a while since I played the HD version on the PlayStation 3, so I can't remember exactly how they compare. I can't remember if this is exactly the same game or there's been some additional work done to it. But on the PlayStation 4, it looks really nice. The character models are really nice, the animation is really nice. This was a great looking game on PlayStation Vita, of course, but it blows up really nicely onto the big screen. I haven't played Assassin's Creed 3 itself yet, so I can't compare to what they've done with that one, but I get the impression that there has been a little bit more work done to this. This is probably slightly better than the Assassin's Creed Liberation on the PlayStation 3. So yeah, if you're a big fan of Assassin's Creed, if you've never played this game before, or if you have perhaps on the Vita, it's well worth having a look at again, because this is a really nice game. Thanks very much for watching this video, and we will see you, of course, at the next one.